scripts, and then who will be writing her scripts if she gets into the White House? Who will be writing? She can't do conversations like this. She's not going to be able to do conversations with world leaders. She needs a script for everything she does. And who is going to be doing that? It's going to be, as my son Connor says, a bunch of anonymous men in lanyards, men and women in lanyards who are, who we don't know, who if you sneak into the Oval Office at 2:00 in the morning, there's a guy there with his feet up on the desk and say, who you've never seen, who's like the real president of the United States,
Yes.
And you don't know who it is. We need somebody who's willing to stand up to the military-industrial complex for these big institutions. Let me say one other thing. When my uncle was president, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, he had the entire intelligence apparatus and the military brass telling him, you got to bomb Cuba. You got to bomb. There's 64 missiles in Cuba, and you got to bomb each one of those. My uncle said to them, well, how many men is that going to kill? And they said, well, there's 500 guys at each of those sites who are manning the sites. My uncle said, are those Russians or are they Cubans? And they said, we think they're probably Russians, but we don't know. My uncle said, if I kill all those Russians, isn't Khrushchev going to have to go into Berlin? And we're in World War III. And they said, we don't think he has the guts to do it. And that was their logic. And my uncle, had a vote of his ExComm committee, which is 13 people, including my father and Bob McNamara, who were making the decision. And they voted 8-6 to bomb. This was the last day. And my uncle said, the sixes have it. In other words, he was making the decision. He would take advice from them. When I was on the plane the other day with President Trump, we were talking about the Mideast, and he took a piece of paper and he drew on it a map of the Mideast with all the nations on it, which most Americans couldn't do.
No.
And then he wrote in each country the troop strength. And he was particularly looking at the border between Syria and Turkey, and he said, we have 500 men on the border of Syria and Turkey, and a little, encampment that was bombed. And he said, there's 750,000 troops in Turkey. There's 250,000 in Syria. If they go up against each other, we're in the middle. And he said to his generals, well, what's going to happen to those 500 men? And his general said to him, they're going to be cannon fodder. And he said, get them out. So we want a president who has that knowledge. He's going to ask those rational questions and then is going to make good decisions for the American public.
Make sure I got this right. Trump on the plane the other day drew a map of the Mideast.
He drew a map of the Mideast.
An accurate map.
Yeah, an accurate map of the Mideast.
With troop strength.
Yes, with troop strength in each of the nations. So, I saw that and it reminded me of the Cuban Missile Crisis. And I know Kamala Harris could not do that. I've seen her interviews explaining Ukraine war and they're sophomoric. So, and I don't want to say bad things about people.
I get it.
But, she just does not have any idea about the uses of power. She does not have the capacity to sign up to a military and intelligence apparatus that wants this country in perpetual war. And I don't think that, and I do believe when Trump says that she's going to get us into nuclear war, they're not talking to the Russians. She will never have a conversation with Putin. No. And Biden won't either.
It's crazy.
And Trump, Trump, the Democrats all criticize Trump because he went and talked to Kim Jong-un and he talked to Putin. They say, oh, he loves dictators. No. My uncle was in the same situation where the CIA had no idea what was happening in Moscow. And, they had all of their spies had been killed. And they just said, here's the way they think. My uncle was saying, how do you know that? They said, it's a monolith. And my uncle said, it couldn't be a monolith. It has to be like Boston politics where they're all trying to stab each other in the back. And the CIA had no idea. So my uncle installed a hotline in the White House and a hotline in our house at the Cape. The wires of it are still coming out of the wall of my brother's house, red wires. So he could pick up the phone and talk to Khrushchev 24 hours a day. And then they started corresponding with each other. They sent 26 letters back and forth. They were smuggled by a GRU spy called Georgy Bolshoi, who my uncle trusted and Khrushchev trusted because they didn't want to involve the military-industrial complex of the intelligence.
Exactly.
Those guys are still there. They still want perpetual war. And we need a president who's going to make up his own mind about things and who is going to challenge his own military advisors, people like Tony Blinken and Jake Sullivan and the people who want to, and Victoria Nuland, the people who want to keep us in a perpetual war and who are going to get us into a nuclear war.
Well, I think we may get one. The New York Times this is breaking right now, is estimating, again, it's the New York Times, who knows, but that Trump will win the popular vote. They're saying he is more likely than Kamala Harris to win the popular vote as of right now. I don't think a Republican has won the popular vote since 2004. I think that's right.
Yeah.
Since the post 9/11 election, George W. Bush. But it's 20 years, never happened.
Yeah.
So if that happened, you were a figure out of history. Now, very obviously, and I appreciate everything you've done, and I can't wait to see what you.
Well, I appreciate what you've done,
I
Tucker.
haven't done much. I'm not going to make America healthy again, but I think you are. So thank you,
We'll
Robert
do it
Kennedy.
together. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Tucker.
Amazing. So we have, whined pretty nonstop for the past, I have for the past 10 years about the loathsome state of the American media. Doesn't mean everyone in the media is loathsome. There are a few honest voices. Bye, guys. See ya. And Miranda Devine is at the top of the list. Miranda Devine of the New York Post, who single-handedly took on the censorship state in 2020 with the Hunter Biden laptop story. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tucker.
Looks like Trump's going to win.
Well, it certainly feels like that in the ballroom where Trump came in at about 8:45 to a huge, ovation from the crowd.
Ballroom here?
The ballroom here at Mar-a-Lago.
I've been stuck in this little room. I have no idea what's
Great
going on.
food. There's sushi and
that
beef
true?
Wellington and
Look at what we're missing,
sea
Benno.
bass. I mean, it's great food. Lots of champagne flowing. And he's sitting there. He's got Dana White next to him. And then on the other side of Dana White is Elon Musk. And everyone's chatting very companionably. But Trump keeps on turning around because CNN's on the big screen behind him. And all he wants to see is Jake Tapper's sad face. And Jake Tapper and all the CNN people looking miserable, actually, as the
really?
night's going on.
I was on the
have
set
fair
at
thoughts for them.
CNN in 2000 when Bush won.
Yeah.
Or when Gore didn't win, more precisely. And I remember the sadness then. It's
Yes.
so nice to see they haven't changed.
We should be kind to them.
So what there he is. There is the aforementioned CNN anchor looking very, very upset.
Grim and dour.
Very. Wearing a
Yes.
vest. You don't see that very often. So Trump in the betting markets now, 86%. $304 million on the line. Who will win the presidential election? 86% of bettors
Wow.
believe Donald Trump. Doesn't mean he's going to win, but it means that he seems to be winning.
But that's moved enormously
It has
today.
moved.
Yeah.
So where are we in Pennsylvania? Ben, will you bring that up a little bit more? Trump is ahead, it looks like. Ooh.
Wow, that's quick.
Sizably ahead with 54% of votes counted.
That's flipped in the last hour.
Yeah, it has. But what are we? 2 hours after polls closed in Pennsylvania,
And postal votes,
and they
they
can't make a
count
call.
first. And
2 hours and 23 minutes
Yeah.
after they closed. It really. I mean, since you're from a foreign country, long time American, but from abroad, you have international perspective. The way that our votes are counted does seem like a national shame.
Crazy, I know.
Okay, it is, right?
It really is.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, look, Australia's a tiny country, but you know the result within a few hours. Same with the UK, same with Europe. I mean, France does not allow mail-in voting or machines.
Yes.
They have a very clean system. In the UK, they brought in voter ID just a couple of years
Florida,
ago.
which has, I think, a population roughly the size of Australia's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They can do it.
They call it in 1 minute.
Yeah. Right.
So if you have a state that doesn't even try to call it within a few days, what do you have? I mean, what do you have? What are you looking at?
I mean, this is the country that sent man to the moon.
Right.
Surely.
Supposedly. No, I'm sure we did. I guess. But certainly there's a lot of advanced technology in the United
Well,
States.
Elon Musk just has a rocket that can catch
Right.
itself on its way home.
Right.
So surely we can make sure that the voting system is not so antiquated.
So can you just wax lyrical a little bit about Donald Trump's story arc? So let's say you're writing this novel about Donald Trump, and here you have a guy who, is the darling of the media world. He's, of course, he's the highest rated person in television, goes into politics, he's hated, called a racist, loses, and then he comes back and wins with a larger vote of a percentage of the non-white vote than any Republican ever.
Yeah.
This racist, like what are we what are we watching here? I've never seen a redemption story like this.
Well, let's hope that you're not jumping the gun. But yeah, I mean, that's the way it looks. If you're writing a novel, and I think...
Well, look, even if Trump loses, look, he's been outspent 3-1.
Yeah.
He's been arrested. He's
Demonized,
been
villainized.
He's had his mugshot taken.
He's
more
had
than
the
once.
entire media establishment
Right.
against him. The entire blob, the CIA, the FBI, they've all been against him. It's the most incredible comeback story. And, he could have slinked off after 2020 and had a comfortable life and probably ingratiated himself back with the lefties. But he didn't. He chose to go the difficult route.
And he's ahead as of right now. Could change, but in Wisconsin, amazing. It's very, very tight, but he's ahead.
I think that assassination attempt in Butler where he stood up and did fight. I think that it certainly was the galvanizing reason for Elon Musk to come out of the shadows.
Yes, within minutes.
And I think Joe Rogan as well. I think a lot of men particularly, but women as well, just recognize there is a once-in-a-lifetime courage and leadership, like a Genghis Khan style leadership. Seriously.
With fewer children, but yes, same idea.
But you don't have that sort of historical figure come to you very often, and the country's in dire need of a figure like that. So as repellent as many Americans find him, I think enough Americans love him. Looks like the majority. I mean, he may even win the popular vote. What a repudiation of the New York Times and CNN and the rest of them, who have treated him as if they've called him a Nazi.
Well, will it be read that way? So Trump, I mean, you spent your life in newsrooms. Your father was a well-known journalist. I mean, you've really been in this business your whole life. What's their so let's say Trump wins. Let's say he wins the popular vote. Let's say he wins a majority or close to of Hispanic voters, this famous racist, Mr. Taco Bowl. Like, what do they make of that? Like, what's their explanation for it? Does it occasion any kind of self-reflection at all?
It would if they were actually journalists and not just propaganda artists who are being controlled by other forces, who will fight Trump and his people every step of the way. We're just talking about big pharma. You just had Bobby Kennedy on. Big pharma, big agriculture. They will be out to do whatever they can to stop him.
I'm just going to be very blunt.
CIA, the FBI, etc.
At this point in time,
so you
cannot be a Democrat or a liberal and not be mentally ill. It is
these sort of malign influences. I don't think there are any.
You think so? So here, I'm playing pantomime with you. I know what you're saying is true because I've seen it. I don't think your average person, he won Iowa. There he's Donald Trump wins Iowa.
Well, of course.
Well, no, I mean, he was.
I know. What about
much watched poll from Iowa points to Harris landslide.
The gold standard poll. Annie Seltzer. How did that happen? She never gets it wrong. She's just magnificent. She was wrong. Fancy that.
But Iowa? I mean,
I
I immediately called a friend of mine who's a political organizer in Iowa, and I said, I'm not from Iowa, to put it mildly. So I don't know. Maybe it's my friend goes, what? And this is like an actual political person in Iowa. That's insane. But that poll was taken seriously.
Yeah. Robert Cahaley from Trafalgar said a really interesting thing the other night, which was that where there used to be the shy Trump voter, now there's the fearful Trump voter. They're afraid of government retribution and knock on the door, being cancelled. So they really are not going to tell pollsters, even as beloved and brilliant as Ann Seltzer, the truth.
You are so good. I'm so glad you're still in the media. I think the fact that you grew up in it gives you a different perspective because you once told me that you remember your dad like at the table talking about it, right? I mean, you grew up in it.
Yeah.
Okay, so
ink in the blood.
You remember what it used to be. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Well, you have that spirit that used to animate all journalists.
Well,
which
and
is-
you have it too because your father is.
Yeah, no, I grew up in it also. No, I mean, I remember when, journalists were like amazing guys and like you respected that they
Swashbuckling
were
adventurers.
100%.
Yeah. They went to war. They jumped out of planes. Like,
100%.
they did dangerous things.
yes.
They didn't just sit behind a keyboard in a New York newsroom snarking at people. They were real men and women.
I
There
remember
weren't that many women, but the
weren't.
ones that were Lois Lane.
Pretty rough.
Yeah.
So what happens to, you said the media will spend not a moment reflecting on how they got it wrong.
Did they do it in
No, they didn't.
2016?
You're absolutely
No.
right. But what happens to the malign forces that you described in Washington, the intel agencies who you butted up against, who tried to shut your story down, famously the 51 former intel officials, all of whom retained security clearances. Really, they were still working for the intel agencies.
Yeah.
But people like that, like, when are they ever going to be held to account for what they did?
I think it's a long-term project. It's going to be more than 4 years, but with any luck, if this is a resounding landslide or resounding victory for Donald Trump, he's really set in place 4 years for himself and then another 8 years for J.D. Vance or whoever is the heir apparent. This is the MAGA movement has taken over the conservative side of politics, and it's no longer going to be the Bushies and the Cheneys and business as usual, where everyone is cozy as the uni party and the malign forces get their way.
It's just incredible. Well, I'm just grateful that you've decided, for whatever reason, to stay in journalism.
Of course. What else would I do?
I try to convince my kids to go into it. That's disgusting. But
I convinced my kids not to.
I
think it's hard
given up,
for
and
young
I'm
people.
glad they're not in it. But you do need decent, honest, tough people with self-respect in it, and you're one of the few. So
Thank you.
I mean it. Thank you very much, Miranda
Thanks
Devine.
so much.
So Trump really shouldn't be here. He should be in prison. And if the plan had unfolded as they wanted it to, he would not be standing for election tonight. He would be behind bars. He's been charged with all kinds of fake crimes. One of the reasons he's not behind bars, one of the reasons he is, he's almost at 200 electoral votes as of 10:32 Eastern, is Alina Habba, who is one of his lawyers, by far the most famous, and I can say very smart. She joins us now. Did you ever think
Wait,
that...
don't you mean unintelligent, stupid, unintelligent, all those things Mark Cuban called us?
Mark Cuban.
Screw Mark
Somebody
Cuban.
said, I think it was Elon the other night, Mark Cuban, I know Mark Cuban. I also know Rachel Maddow.
Yeah.
Worked with her. He does look so much like Rachel Maddow now. Like, what
By
is
the way,
that?
it's the glasses. I'm debating, is it Rachel Maddow? Is he trying to be on The View? I can't figure
But
it out.
he
Tucker.
does seem like he's undergoing some physiological
Maybe it's a
changes.
transition.
No, honestly, it looks that
Perhaps.
way. What is that?
Perhaps, I could represent him through that. Maybe I could get the taxpayer liberal dollars. I'm here for you, Mark. Whatever you need. This intelligent woman will help you transition on taxpayer dollars under the Kamala Harris regime. I'm here for it.
I remember we had dinner at the beginning of this whole drama that you've been through, and I remember thinking, boy, you're signing up for a lot of drama.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I mean, looking
It's
back,
a blessing. It's been a blessing.
Really?
Yes, I feel that way.
How?
I feel this was God's plan. I feel grateful, honestly. I do. I think the more they hit me, the more I know I have a voice. And
Yes.
President Trump's given me a voice. Nobody should know who President Trump's lawyer was.
Yeah.
And you and I talked about it. And I
Yeah.
was like, hey, Tucker, I'll come on your show. We don't do lawyers. I'm like, yeah, but, and then it became that I wasn't just a lawyer. That's because of President Trump. So the man that they tell you has torn down women has given me a platform.
course.
And I'm a first generation American girl. I was not a straight A student. I didn't go to Harvard.
I think Trump likes women better. I've always.
You
thought
know
that.
what I know? You know what? Yeah, for sure. Listen, the truth of the matter is I'm here for such a time as this, but I'm so honored. And I feel like no matter what happens, we laid it all on the field. And we fought so hard. He should have been in jail, according to
Yeah.
them. He should have been dead, according to him.
Yeah, no, that's right.
And we crushed it, Tucker. I mean, no matter what, you can't say we didn't crush it.
You certainly did.
Yeah.
And it was like a swarm of bees at one point.
Yeah,
There were
for sure.
so many different filings against him. I couldn't even keep track of it.
Indictments, raids. When I signed up to work with President Trump. I told him in the interview, I had interviewed with him and Eric Trump, who you know well, and the GC of the Trump Organization. And I had said to them, sir, I'm really happy to represent you as an attorney, but I will not get involved in politics. Not happening. A month later, I sued Hillary Clinton. So here we are. He always gets the last word.
And you think you've enjoyed it.
I honestly feel it's a blessing. All the hit pieces, all the tormenting, The View, Jimmy Kimmel, Mark Cuban, bring it on. Bring it on, baby.
Did Jimmy Kimmel attack you?
Always. Jimmy Kimmel many times. SNL 2 weeks in a row. That's a badge of
Whatever
honor.
happened to Jimmy Kimmel was like a pretty...
Does anybody watch it? I don't know.
No one watches it. I mean, his career ended, but
Yeah.
How is he so controlled? Like, what do they have on Jimmy
Fear.
Kimmel?
Maybe he was at Diddy's Island, Epstein's Island. I'm sure.
Something's going on.
You know what we don't need to do, Tucker? This is what I said at the rally. I said this, one of my second to last rallies, I said, you will not see people from Diddy's parties or Epstein's Island on this stage. So when I say it's a blessing, because I have something called morality, which is lacking, and God is number one to me. Not Trump, nothing else. God is number one. So for me, my faith, my family, that's why I'm here. And my children, we can't live through this kind of culture that they're creating. This fear of sending my kids to school. I can't have that. I can't have that. I got to switch my kids from school because my daughter's school's so woke. I can't take it. Yeah. I can't have that. You have kids.
You shouldn't take it.
I'm not going to take it.
Good.
And I'm not going to take it not only for me, but for your kids, for everybody's kids. So it's a blessing.
My kids are out of it, thank heaven.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I would not send my
Homeschooling.
children. I would not send my children
Yeah.
to private or public school right now if I had to do it.
Don't
again.
trust the system.
Thank God. No. Oh, Lena Hubbard, congratulations. No matter what happens, you
I mean,
you have done your part and have been victorious. And I don't know if anyone would have bet on you.
Nobody was betting on me.
couple
Tucker.
years ago,
Let's be honest, Tuck. You weren't betting on me. Listen, the truth,
I thought I was secretly betting on you.
you know what it is? I was every stigma that they wanted to say was dumb, stupid. She looks a certain way. She can't be good.
Yeah.
She must be. It's because of her looks. It's because of this. It's because of that. And the words I want to say right now are not very Catholic.
No,
but
I know what you mean.
big F you. Big F you tonight. F you, all of you.
It's a nice feeling. Yeah,
It's a good feeling.
That's
Tucker.
the party I
Guess what?
vote
No
for.
matter what, we're on the party of F you.
Lynn, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Great to see you.
Good to see you. Let's
Thank
win,
you.
Tuck.
Oh,
Let's
it
win.
looks like,
We're
it looks
looking
like, I
good.
mean, I don't know. We're still in betting markets. We've got Eric Trump
That's
is
it.
standing right there.
That's
who may
how it
have
goes.
the
That's how it
brand new
goes.
numbers. Do you have the
Eric
brand new
Trump, my
numbers?
biggest, by the way, tougher client than Donald Trump. True story. Tougher client than Donald Trump is
that
Eric
true?
Trump. It's true. He is not Donald Trump is not the tough one. It's Eric.
No, I believe that.
It's true.
I believe that.
It's true.
He's back at HQ going through the contracts.
On that note, bye-bye. I want my bills paid. See you guys.
See ya.
Thank you.
So, Eric, thank you very much for doing this. I've been stuck in this seat for so long. I don't know exactly what's going on out there. What is going on?
What is going on?
Yeah.
This is like the greatest, for me, vindication of everything that we've dealt with for the last 9 years. So right now we're looking great in Georgia. We're looking great in North Carolina. I think they call both the states in the next 10, 15 minutes. And then I think our internal numbers show us winning Pennsylvania. And our internal numbers show us winning Wisconsin, right? So you have that before you get out to Arizona and Nevada, which I think we're going to win both of those.
So if that comes true, so if you got Georgia, North Carolina, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania,
It's over.
It is
I
right.
mean, if you get Georgia, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania, it's over. If you get Wisconsin, it's icing on the cake. If you get Nevada and Arizona, it's like, even better. And so, Tucker, they put us through hell. I mean,
So this actually could end tonight.
oh, absolutely. And it could end sooner, sooner than we otherwise think. And, oftentimes when we see a lot of the raw data coming in behind the scenes, and oftentimes the news networks will actually kind of, hold it back for a while because they want to.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry to interrupt. Just to give our audience some perspective in case you're not following this, 84% counted in North Carolina. They're saying it's too early to call, but Trump is at 51. I mean, it's not.
I mean, just for context, the New York Times has them at 83% chance of winning as of a second ago, and it's going up every few minutes. And Tucker, the reason I say that, I'm not a boastful guy.
Dude, it's only 1040. This is crazy. This is crazy.
They've put us through freaking hell over the last 9 years. They've done everything to our family that you could possibly do. To have them go after him, to have them try and impeach him, to have them make up the slurs and the dossiers, impeach, literally send me 111 subpoenas. I'm the most subpoenaed person in history. Only to come back against all odds. They shot at him, to win decisively early in the night. It would be the greatest, I don't want to use the word revenge. I think it's a little bit too harsh, but maybe it's not, honestly. They've tried to destroy his life. They've tried to separate our family. They've tried to destroy our company. They've done everything that they could to take down Donald Trump. To win early in the night, decisively, it would be the greatest kind of retribution that you could possibly
Well, to go
imagine.
after, you and your brother in the way that they did. I mean, I had a long talk with your dad about that the other night, weirdly. And he's pretty emotionally controlled, but I don't think I'm saying anything out of school. He seemed like, just thinking about it, upset him in a real way. That was my read on it.
Look what Adam Schiff did to Don.
Exactly.
You colluded with Russia. We're going to throw you in jail for the rest of your life. It's treason. Don had nothing to do with Russia. I was the guy that got the calls from the Washington Post, New York Times, saying, Eric, I hear you have secret servers that are connected to the Kremlin in the basement of Trump Tower. Now, Tucker, I want to bring you through the basics, right? You don't put servers in basements because basements flood. Let's just go, 101. Second of all, we're largely a cloud-based. The FBI knew this day one that there were no servers in the basement and that the whole thing was a made-up sham, and they let it go on for a 3-year period of time. So think because some greedy woman wanted to get an extra 3 votes, they literally pitted the 2 biggest nuclear superpowers against each other, almost destroyed all communication, all relationship that you could have, right? In this kind of phantom made-up story, they pitted the largest superpowers against each other so Hillary Clinton could get 20 more votes if people actually believed it.
And we're on the brink of nuclear war with Russia right now because of this.
It's truly sick. I mean, you know how many situations there have been over history where somebody shot up a weather satellite and they thought there was a missile coming over the pole and they had to use that phone, right? I mean, this is pretty well documented in history that these kinds of things have happened. And guess what? They were always had the ability to make a phone call. I mean, think all of a sudden it's Russia collusion and you pit Vladimir Putin and Trump against one another, and that call can't be made in the middle of the night when something as innocent as a satellite goes up in space or something along those lines. And I mean, think of what that could lead to, all because of absolute greed. And it's not just the Russia hoax. It's the 2 impeachments. It's going after Kavanaugh. It's ripping him off of Facebook. It's ripping him off of Instagram and Twitter, right? It's 110 subpoenas to me. It's raiding Barron's room, raiding Melania's room, right? Taking him off the ballot in Colorado, taking him off the ballot in Maine, trying to kill him. And despite that, here we are. Here we are on November 5th. It's 10:40, and it looks like in the next 20 minutes, 2 more states that are just critical states could fall. Pennsylvania looks great, all the internal data. I think we're going to win Pennsylvania in a big way. I think we're going to win Wisconsin. I think we're going to win Nevada, and I think we're going to win Arizona.
You're freaking me out. Just when you put it that way, I have to say, Trump always gets attacked for being vindictive and all this stuff. It's like, I've spent a lot of time talking to him. I've never heard him describe what you just described in the way that he did. He's actually weirdly not vindictive at all.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
Because when you lay it out like that, it's really...
I think it bothers a child more than it bothers the actual person.
Of course, right. I get it.
I take the insults hurled at him much more personally than I take insults hurled at me, right?
No, of course.
You see the absolute massacre that they put him through as a billionaire who did not need this job.
No, I know.
Right? He's the last guy that needed this job. Believe me, his life would be exponentially better sitting here at Mar-a-Lago enjoying life, right? And he wants to do this because he wants to save this country. And, he's hell-bent on saving this country. There are no vacations. I mean, the 2 of us haven't slept in 48 hours because we were in, 7 different rallies in the last, 36 hours leading up to this. I mean, we got in at 5:30 this morning. He went straight off to vote when he effectively got in, early this morning. And, the guy's worked his ass off. The guy's absolutely worked his ass off. He gets nothing other than subpoenas and weaponization of government and sitting in courthouses all day long. And so it's actually really vindication of the American people. It's not vindication of Donald Trump. It's vindication of the American people, which is, hey, listen, government, we understand your games and you've tried every single one of them and we haven't believed you. And at the end of it, we're going to go vote for the guy that you've tried to take down mercilessly because we don't like you. You considered us the flyover states. You forgot about us. We weren't human to you, right? We were this kind of subhuman class to most of the elites in Washington, D.C. You forgot about us. And you know what? Now we're going to go and we're going to support the guy that you tried to take down, but the guy that was fighting for us every single day. And as a son, it's the greatest feeling in the world. If he wins this overwhelmingly, if he gets 315, 316 electoral votes, there's a possibility that he wins literally the popular vote or comes as close as anybody could possibly come to winning the popular vote. It would be the greatest vindication that everything that he's fought for mattered. That it mattered to the American people, that it mattered to this country, that it mattered to the heart and soul of this nation. And there's nothing that would make me more proud.
It's just the most unbelievable story. I just think I've been too close to it for too long. I can't really, honestly, until you started talking and laid it out that way, I've never thought about it in this way. But when he lost in 2020, and I thought there was something wrong with it. Now I'm totally convinced it was stolen. I always get taken off YouTube for saying that, but I believe that. But nobody backed him. Everyone's like, "Oh, shut up, go away." People mocked him. His own party wanted him out of there. Sure. They were embarrassed of him. They hated that he wouldn't stop. I mean, they hated that oh, shut up. They wouldn't let him on Fox News. Like, he was not allowed to talk.
And you know what? For every one of the things that I named, right? The impeachments and the Kavanaughs and the Twitters and Facebooks and the censorship and everything. For every one of those things that I just named, there's 100 that the public never saw.
Oh, I know.
That never, never made it across your channels. Never. I mean,
no, I know.
That were just personal attacks that were so vindictive you can't possibly imagine, right? And yet he stood up every single day and he fought the nonsense. And
it's crazy though. I mean, everybody abandoned him. He was literally like him and Rudy.
Yeah.
Like it was.
And against every weaponized system. And that's one thing that people forget. It's not just the attacks. They weaponized the DOJ. They weaponized the FBI. They weaponized the mainstream media. You know better than anybody. You were like the face of it, right, for the longest time. They weaponized social media when they started pulling them off those platforms. They weaponized Department of Health, right? I mean, remember the doctors came out, hey, hydroxychloroquine might work, right? They start ripping licenses. They weaponized everything. They weaponized the military with, Milley coming out. I want to understand white race. I mean, they weaponized every single government institution that we had as a country. And then they weaponized the mainstream media, and you had one guy. Maybe one guy with a little bit of us standing on the stage, right, with a loud voice, but you had one guy that literally defeated it all. And he did that because he had the American people behind him. But really, think about the David and Goliath story of all of that. If he wins tonight, which he's on the brink of doing, it was one guy that beat the American media and all the other weaponized systems that tried to take him down. I mean, it's fascinating, right? As a guy who came in, he didn't know what a delegate was when we got into politics. I mean, literally, we didn't know what the hell a caucus was. I remember getting in Iowa and asking some little staffer, I'm about to speak at a big caucus. Look, can somebody explain to me what the hell a caucus? And by the way, you didn't know either until you got into politics, right?
Come on. I still don't know. I've covered a million caucuses.
And so a guy who literally knew not a damn thing about the system beat Hillary, one of the greatest political dynasties ever. Beat her when she outraised him 5-1. I mean, she raised $1.5 billion. I mean, he put in $200 million and raised another $100 million. I mean, against all odds, and then beat the mainstream media in this country, beat that whole weaponized system. He was down, he was out. There were serious questions about what happened in 2020, and I'm not a conspiracy guy. I'm not like the tinfoil. It's just a fact, right? Statistically, you could prove it.
He's at 210 right now.
And then he comes back after all of that, and he wins by a massive electoral number. It will be one of the greatest comeback stories of all time, right?
The greatest I've ever seen. I've never seen anything like it, like ever.
And one last thing, not to get too deep with you, but
no, I'm loving this, and I've never heard you. I mean, I've talked to you a million times. I've never heard you like this.
He wrote 2 books, right? One was The Art of the Deal, and The Art of the Deal, if you look at it, like it's just kind of the parallels to the 2016 campaign is really incredible. But then he wrote The Art of the Comeback years later, right? He had the financial problems in the early 90s. Interest rates went up to 18%. He was heavily levered. And he fought his ass off to come back from the brink of... And he came back bigger and stronger than he... Right? And so he wrote a second book, The Art of the Comeback. And I've always said that those books mirror his life in politics. And no one ever, for some reason, puts it together. If he does what I think he's going to do within the next hour... 2 hours, if CNN decides to drag it out, it's going to be the greatest comeback in American history. It might be the greatest comeback in political history. Down and out with everyone against you, sitting in a freezing cold courtroom with 34 indictments and everything else they tried to do to bury him and bankrupt him and destroy his family and split all of us up. And now all of a sudden you're here on the 1 yard line. Tucker, it's awesome. I mean, it's truly a fairy tale story. And it's a story, in fact, I think that if you wrote it down in a novel, people wouldn't believe you.
Man, it's not the life you expected, I bet.
It's a very different life than we expected.
Well, that was amazing. I will not forget this conversation.
He did say one last thing. Coming down that escalator, that first day, right, the elevator, he goes, you're going to remember who your friends are, your real friends are, and they're going to hit us in ways that you can never possibly imagine. They're going to be ruthless. They're going to be ruthless. And
he said that day?
He said that going down the elevator before we got on the escalator, before he announced, obviously, in 2016.
Did you believe him?
Yes, because he's got good intuition, but never to the extent.
I mean, were you for it?
Oh, I was totally for it. Oh,
In
absolutely.
16 you were for
Oh,
it?
I was totally for it.
Why?
But Tucker, just remember one thing about 16.
Like, you had a pretty good deal going.
Is 16, we thought that the deep state was like Nancy Pelosi being in government for 40 years, right? Like literally, like, Joe Biden's been in government, 15 years longer than I've been alive, and I've got gray in my beard, right? So that was, remember, like Drain the Swamp?
Yeah.
Remember those chants?
Yeah.
That was like, okay, get rid of Maxine Waters, who's been there for 40 years. It wasn't like, okay, you're going to have the CIA come after you. You're going to have the DOJ come after you. You're going to have every AG and DA weaponized against you. You're going to have made up hoaxes. I don't think we could have ever comprehended truly how rough it was going to be. And I think his words really rang true. They're going to come after us in ways that you can't possibly imagine.
Man, if he wins in the next year, I'm going to come find you because I just want to shake your hand. Eric Trump, that was wonderful. Thank you.
That was fun.
I appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Tucker.
Thank you. So I think it's pretty clear that a pivotal figure, I'm not sucking up, I've never taken any money from the man, just want to be clear about that, but a pivotal figure not just in this election, but in the history of this country is Elon Musk, and who was just walked in with his son, who's so cute, it's ridiculous. That kid, oh, hey, what are you doing?
You want to just sit on my knee or something? Okay, I guess so. All right, well, I got mini-me here.
It certainly is.
Mini-me, you complete me.
What's your name? What's your name?
Actually, we're not going to show you. It does this
We're on TV.
This is wild.
X, should we help President Trump?
yeah.
Well, you have.
Truth from the mouth of babes.
It looks like. I mean, it looks.
I started this the quiet lead.
I know what you're saying, X. But you're getting you have the general vibe.
Yeah.
Before in
you got the
space
vibe.
acts, and quietly just do whatever we want.
I like your laugh. That's a laugh of an honest man.
Yeah.
I think this. What's your assessment? Did this work? Is he going to win?
Yeah, it is. Not for now. No. Really.
I think it's done.
You think it's done?
Yeah.
But not for now.
Not for long. So where are we? 89. I mean, okay, so it's 10:52. It's a little earlier than Obama told us we're gonna have to wait a month or something.
Yeah.
You only want to know what it is start for L.
I mean, I'm looking at the data as it comes in from every county in Pennsylvania,
Oh, he can tell us. It's all right.
and it seems extremely likely that, if not a certainty, that
So then we're done.
done.
I mean, are you surprised? Because I'm shocked by how quickly this happened.
I'm not particularly surprised because the
no.
that's look, okay, so we might have to.
Sammy Timo, oh, she's so nice. You don't need to worry. She's really nice.
So let's see. So I think more relevant than the polls is looking at the early voting data. And if you look at the early voting data in Pennsylvania, for example, and you compare the Republican minus Democrat vote across all of the swing states, but certainly in Pennsylvania, the delta was, as of this morning, I believe 602,000. So meaning like the relative to 2020.
Right.
So if you say like, okay, how is President Trump doing relative to 2020? The difference in early voting was over 600,000. the margin of victory, Biden's margin of victory in 2020 was only 80,000, which a reasonable extrapolation, assuming that, let's assume that the in-person voting is no better than 2020, then you would expect a margin of victory for President Trump of approximately 500,000.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't think you necessarily need to be like some incredible prognosticator if you just look at the data.
But they were telling us, on CNN.
Oh, they'll.
But why particularly? What
CNN.
was the point of
I mean,
lying about it? Which
Well, I
they
don't know
did.
if they lie. Maybe they just don't understand.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been posting on X about this.
Oh, I
I literally
know.
post the charts and I post the data. I'm just looking at
But
the data.
how could Trump win? I mean, after they indicted him, he's a rapist, he's a criminal. I mean, they've been attacking Trump like every day for 9 years, and
Sure.
he wins bigger this time than in 2016 against a candidate who's outspending him 3-1 all in. How could that happen?
No, it's remarkable. In fact, it's not just that the the Kamala machine puppet machine campaign
Yeah.
is outspending. It's not the Dems are massively outspending the Republicans in the swing states, including any contribution that I make. But you also have the sort of legacy mainstream media, which is overwhelmingly in favor of Kamala. They might as well be an extension of the DNC.
Well, they are. Yeah.
Yeah. The DNC just sends them whatever the talking points are, and they all just talk like NPCs, essentially, all day long, instantly. And then you've also got, God knows how many celebrity endorsements. I mean, it's like sort of running out of, like, there's anyway, call it 80%, 90% of celebrity endorsements on the Dem side. So you basically you have what appears to be a deck that is very much stacked in favor of the Dem. Like you said, like, how can a Republican win at all?
Yeah.
Now, I mean, one of the things that we did do to kind of even the odds was we massively improved the Republican ground game, My America PAC. Massively improved the Republican ground game in the swing states. So the Democrats only have the best ground game. Just in terms of knocking on doors, talking to people, sounds simple. Just having a good sort of word of mouth virality campaign, having good messaging that appeals to people's specific interests. And then making sure people get to the polls. Just making sure that people have transport. The Democrats are normally extremely good with getting making it convenient. Because for a lot of people, if they'll vote, it's just maybe they don't have a ride. you know? So we just made sure everyone had a ride. We made sure that we paid particular attention to the Amish community in Pennsylvania.
It's amazing.
Which is why
Had anyone ever gotten the Amish out to vote before?
not in significant numbers. But the Democrats did make a mistake because there was government overreach and with some of the Amish farmers.
Yes.
They're just, for them, there's no such thing as like organic farming or not organic. They're farmers. They've been farming the same way for a long time, and there was some, just government overreach that shut down some Amish farmers, which really, made them pretty upset. You just need to be able to channel that, the fact that they're upset and like, well, there's a thing you can do about it, which is called voting. And we're happy to, transport you to, they're allowed to ride in vans as long as they're not driving the van. So, we're just making sure we bring them to the polls and they vote how they want to vote, which is going to be like 99.9%. Actually, call it 100.
Call it 100 at least.
Call it 100.
So these are
In
raw
favor
milk
of Trump.
producers.
Yeah.
So you endorsed Trump within minutes of him being shot. I mean, how many? I mean, it was literally minutes, I think, as I remember.
Yeah.
And then you just went more all in than I've ever seen anybody ever go.
Yeah.
What was the? Did you ever doubt, or did you just decide to go all in and you just did it?
I mean, my philosophy is you play to win. You don't play by half measure. So, I mean, I was with the team every day, 7 days a week, just working the early votes in Pennsylvania and other swing states. First registrations. Like if people don't register, they can't vote. So the initial focus was just maximizing registrations, and then once the registration deadline was over, just getting the early votes. Yeah.
X, from my perspective, played a pivotal role, not just in this election, but in keeping the country alive.
Yeah. Well, X is, I think, the one place where you can find out the truth.
Yes.
And
The only place.
yeah.
So how much pressure, to the extent you can say, has there been on you to shut it down or to censor it?